My name is Marianne Huff, and I am the president and CEO of the Mental Health Association in Michigan, and I really appreciate you joining us today because I have the absolute pleasure of sitting down with Kamaria McDaniel, who is a former collegiate women's basketball athlete, and she's now slated to play overseas. And you know, the dream is to play in the WNBA, and I really want to welcome you, Kamaria.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here today. One of the things we're going to do, what we're going to do today is we are going to talk about college sports and mental health, and we're going to have a candid conversation about that. We're going to talk about college athletics and the impact that it has, or it can have, on the mental health and well-being of student athletes. We're also going to talk a little bit about what's being done to address these issues. But what I'd like to do is start this with a quote from Dr. Candace Williams, who is the director of health, mind, health, and wellness for the Boston Celtics. And here's what she said. She said, "We have to put the person before the student and the athlete. Otherwise, we are at risk of losing all three. And would you say there's a lot of pressure to perform well as a college athlete when you're in that setting?
It's a lot of pressure. I think it's a lot of pressure that people can't even really empathize with because, being put in those settings, in those arenas, in front of all of those people is just something that only a small percentage of people get to experience. And the pressure trickles down. I mean, if it's pressure on administration, then we feel the pressure as well because we're the only ones out on that court or that field or, wherever our respective sport is. And so we feel it all. And it's more than, I can kind of put into words sometimes. I've had teammates, that just the pressure gets to them. And it's real. And I just want people to understand that and, take it easy. It's real for sure.
Yeah. Well, we've heard about the negative impact of certain cultures, coaching styles on the mental health and well-being of student athletes. And it's my understanding it's becoming an area of focus for the NCAA. Colleges and universities are looking at that. We unfortunately hear news stories about student athletes who have completed suicide, who openly talk about their mental health struggles. That's becoming a lot more common as well. So, we have some well-known student athletes that we're aware of who completed suicide, who on the outside looked like they had everything together. That when you're playing for a Division I school, which is what you did 3 times, right. People might look at that and think that everything is really going well in your world, but it's not necessarily so, is it?
No, it's not. I think, and this is a testament to really any type of culture. There's just so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't get to see, and I think it's time to really speak about that and uncover that in efforts to make it better. And that's why I'm here today.
Thank you. Well, in 2022, there were these 5 very well-known student athletes who completed suicide. Sarah Schultz, Katie Meyer, Jaden Hill, Robert Martin, and Lauren Bennett. And like I said earlier, they looked like they had everything together on the outside. More research has identified the fact, too, that college athletes tend to have greater incidence of depression and anxiety than their peers who are not athletes in college. The pressure to perform, which we sort of talked about, and then also, isn't there a lot of pressure to get good grades, too? Like, don't you have to keep up your grade point average to continue to play?
For sure. It's like you're living a double life. It's like having 2 full-time jobs. And it's not just saying that, it's what it is. You go to practice and then you go to class, and then after that you have to have time to, eat and have a social life. And so it's like nonstop. You can get drained out easily. And my dad always says too, like, you're working 2 full-time jobs, I get it, and it's real. And so that's really what it feels like. If anybody has done that, work 2 full-time jobs, you gotta attend to them both every day. That's what it's like to be a college athlete.
Yeah, well, the pressure has got to be enormous, and especially for young people.
For sure.
Trying to pursue a college career. So as you can see, we're starting the dialogue, but Kamaria is here today really to give us a better understanding of this overall issue because you've lived it. And Kamaria is from Inkster, Michigan, and as we said earlier, a student athlete at 3 prestigious Division I universities. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kamaria. She started her college career at Penn State University for 3 years.
Yes, ma'am.
And then decided to fully pursue her dream to attend Baylor University in Texas because of the rich basketball culture that would surely help you get to the NBA. After a year and a half, everything changed. After a knee injury, an unforeseen coaching change.
Yes.
So you decided to walk away mid-season, right, with the possibility of never playing college basketball again.
Yes.
So basketball was heavily tied, would you say, to how you felt about yourself, your self-worth?
It's everything.
Okay.
I think when you become a college athlete, the sport is the basis of everything that you do. And for me, my whole life, I've worked to become a college athlete, and then with aspirations become a professional athlete. So all the blood, the sweat, the tears that goes into it, it becomes a part of you. Because as human beings, we don't take sacrifices lightly.
Right.
And so if you don't watch how you idolize the things that you're aspiring to do and become, they become you. And so when basketball isn't going well, Kamaria isn't well. When Kamaria doesn't perform, you know, her life is in shambles. She doesn't want to go. I don't want to go out and socialize because I'm thinking about, you know, how I perform. And so it's hard to separate the two because it's the basis of what you're praised for. It's the basis of how people see you. People don't even understand when we go out to family outings and it's like, oh, this the hooper right there. This our hooper, not this is Kamaria. This is Kamaria, the person, the human being. This Kamaria, the basketball player. Yeah. So everybody else also starts to become wrapped up in this identity, and it's like it goes into like, you know, a never-ending thing unless you correct it yourself.
Yeah. So I can imagine that having your self-worth tied to your ability to play basketball. I can see where that would create opportunities for depression, especially with a knee injury.
For sure, because then we start talking about how, in my perspective, and I know a lot of my peers, it's like the uncontrollables become overbearing. Because like for me, I can't control my knee injury.
Right.
But that's getting in the way of what I tie my identity and self-worth to.
Right.
So now this is where we see the depression and the anxiety and the pressure that we'll put on ourselves to get back out there, because we got to get back to what makes us feel good as people, and that's performing in our sport. And until you're out of it, and for my knee, I had no choice but to sit out, and you see like, okay, I have to offer something else to this world. And for some people, you know, that comes later rather than sooner, and it can really have an effect on your life, for sure.
Well, and I was doing some research in preparation for this conversation, and I came across some scholarly journal articles which said that college athletes who have knee injuries are at greater risk for depression, which makes sense, right? So it's, from what I understand, you know, you really developed some significant mental health issues, and then you were granted what's called a mental health waiver by the NCAA. And then you were able to compete for another season. And then in your last season, it says here that you went through a journey of sort of detaching from your identity that was so tied to basketball.
I can go into detail about that. It's weird. I'm a very spiritual person. And so, you know, I just felt like for like 2 weeks, I was just like, it was almost like grieving. Like I was sad. I actually wrote like a breakup letter to basketball. I was just tired of the pressure. I put pressure on myself my whole life to excel. And I was just tired. I just wanted to be me. And whatever that looked like, I wanted to be okay with that. And I came to that point, and after that, it was like I surrendered the results, you know, because my whole life is like WNBA or nothing. I had no other aspirations, because to even get to this level, you have to dedicate so much of your life to developing your skills just so people see you as good enough to even give you a scholarship. So for me, like getting to that point where, you know, I'm like, you know what, I've given my all. I fall back from injury. I've never let anything deny me. But understanding that things are going to work in my favor, and once I really realized that, and I saw that, hey, I have value outside of this sport. Like, I'm still a good person. There's still people who don't play sports that are valued, that are loved. And I just started to have this like revelation in my mind, and it seemed to me like after I had that, things went a lot smoother. Because the results weren't. So if I did I did amazing in the game or I didn't, I felt the same. And that was a place that I didn't know that I needed to be, but I really needed to be.
Yeah, so like a turning point. So I think what we want to do is sort of, talk about your story, and how did you get there? Because I know that you created a company, Human Before Athlete, and your goal is to really help coaches with professional development with regards to how they interact with their players.
Yes, for sure. That's what I want to do. And just from all my experiences, like I said, I believe in life, there's no mistakes. And I've been to 3 different universities and experienced 6 different head coaches. And so, and many, many other assistant coaches and support staff. So, from my experiences, I want to come together and collaborate to make sure the student athlete experience gets better over time, because that's I feel like that's our purpose as human beings, is to leave the world in a better place than what we found it.
Yeah.
And if we come in contact with issues, to make an effort to solve those issues in a way that's cohesive for everyone involved, and that's essentially the basis or the essence of what Human Before Athlete is.
Yeah. So we want to get into your story, and there's a quote that I heard from Steve Jobs, and he basically said, the storyteller is the most powerful person of all.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Yeah.
So you have quite a story to tell. So can you talk to us about what made you decide to become a basketball player? Like, in the early part of your life, what was it that was inside of you that inspired you to, pursue this?
I was around it a lot, and then in my city, like, my dad was a coach, my mom was a collegiate athlete, so they kind of gave us the freedom to pick and choose whatever sport we wanted, and I feel like I progressed the most with basketball. A lot of the boys in the neighborhood played it. My dad bought me a rim, and I was like, that's when I really fell in love with the process. I'm not an end goal minded person because of essentially how I fell in love with basketball. It was like one summer, like, my dad would put the rim at 8 feet, and I started making it at 8 feet. Then the next summer we go 8.5 feet. So then I started to become like obsessed with getting better, and that's kind of how I fell in love with the game. And I was just always around it. There was a lot of people, a lot of coaches that poured into me and saw my potential, and the rest is history.
Wow.
It's like a love story.
Well, it sounds like a love story. I mean,
yeah, it's a love story.
What an amazing thing to be able to pursue your dream, though.
Yes, for sure. It's amazing. Honestly, being from a place like Inkster, it's not a lot of opportunities, and it was set up that way. And so I'm forever grateful and blessed that I was able to, pursue my dream at the highest levels, and now able to do it on a professional level.
Yeah. Well, and you've shared you were really, you were able to attend 3 Division I schools, so that was Penn State, Baylor, and Michigan State, right? The first school that you were able to go to, what was it like to get a full scholarship to play for a prestigious university the first time?
Honestly, Marianne, like, it didn't really hit for me in the beginning because I didn't really know what it was about. I didn't really know about college or anything. I just know, like, I'm going to play. Then I get there, I'm like, wow, this is a really cool place. And then as time went on, I understand how much of a blessing it was to be there. But I was excited. I was going in thinking it was like high school basketball. We're going to go in, we're going to practice, play. I'm thinking, because I only have my realm of experiences and what I've learned to kind of depend on, or refer back to. So I thought it was going to be like that. I was excited. I was ready to play. That was my biggest thing. I was excited to be able to get that opportunity.
So, one of the things that we wanted to talk about was the impact that the coaching culture has on student athletes, and I know you have some things. Is there something that stands out in your mind as we start talking about that you've just shared, what an opportunity to go to a school, a big university, but then was there a point when those expectations or those, the excitement? I mean, was there a time when it started to kind of fade to some degree because of what you were experiencing, because of the pressure? I mean, can you talk about that?
Yeah, when I got to college, like I said, I thought it was gonna be like high school was, and then I understood politics. I understood favorites. I understood, dynamics. I understood starting to have to understand relationships, and those were things that I had no prior knowledge of. It was like whoever was the best, who was ready to play, played, and that's how he's gonna do it. When you get to college, it's different. It's a culture. It's people who've already developed relationships and have loyalty to each other, and those are what we call basically basketball politics. It's about who's been pushed, who's been set as this person is going to do this, and people run with narratives, and I had to learn that the hard way, and it was rough because I just had like a super rude awakening. I would say. Just getting to college, understanding that it's not always merit based. It's more so about what's been established behind closed doors.
So do you have an experience in mind that you could share globally, that really impacted your mental health in a negative way?
I remember being in a meeting and I've been, struggling with this particular thing, and I remember a coach telling me, listen, you're just not the same player you were before. I don't know what to tell you, you're just not. And so from that point, it was like I was having this crazy identity crisis because, I knew who I was, but my circumstances was stopping me from being that, and to be told that, it was just like, my mind, I'm like, what am I even doing with my life right now? I remember that day specifically, and I went home and I just felt lost. Like, to hear somebody say that to me, knowing how hard I'm working,
And that was coming on the heels of an injury too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, wasn't that after an injury that happened?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, in thinking about your overall experience, because between the three schools, how many years was that?
6 years.
6 years, okay.
Mm-hmm.
In that span of those, from beginning to end, or in that time period, when did you struggle the most?
I struggled the most, I would say year 4 and 5.
Okay.
Honestly, Marianne, I had a time in my life where I just felt like maybe like I did something wrong to God or something, because it seemed like everything in my life went wrong. Like it was nothing, it felt like it was nothing positive happening for me. It was like I took the first step off of a mountain peak straight down to the valley. And, reflecting on that time, I'm kind of getting a little choked up, but I had my faith to rely on, but if I didn't, I don't know where I would be. And when I think about where I am now, I'm so grateful that I continue to push, because I felt like I had no support. I felt like I was by myself, and I felt like things were just going to get worse and worse. And I was fought tooth and nail about everything. My body wasn't the same. I couldn't play the same. I had people that openly didn't believe in me, would say it to my face, It was just a lot of unforeseen circumstances that I had no control over, and because, like we talked about, my identity was wrapped up in a sport. It's like my life, I went basically like on a hiatus. I have friends and, people that I communicated with regularly that I stopped communicating with, and if anybody's watching that, it was one of those people. I hope we can connect again. But yeah, it was rough. Knowing who I was and not being that anymore, it's like my only sense of like worth and adrenaline and happiness came from performance, and it's like I wasn't getting that, and I couldn't control it. It the next time in my life.
Well, I think what makes it difficult, and I'm not an athlete, but I would imagine what makes it difficult for an athlete, your performance is based on your body.
Yeah.
So if something happens to your body, what happens to your performance?
You really can't, and you can try as hard as you want to, but your body does not allow you to do anything that it's not capable of.
Right.
And so, you know, and then being quite frank, you know, when you are injured, like you kind of get ignored. I mean, I know a lot of my peers, and I would never say any names, but they get ignored. And that's like, I feel like we should change that, because that's the time when you should not be getting ignored. That's the time when you shouldn't be overlooked or treated like a commodity. I mean, because that's not hard. That's probably the hardest thing we have to go through. It's like the uncontrollables, because we can get out there and play, but if my knees hurt or my ankles hurt and I can't play, and you treat me like I'm, you know, not there, I just don't imagine how that could be positive for anybody's life.
Yeah, I don't know how it could be positive for your mental health and well-being, your self-esteem, you know, your sense of self, and especially when you're younger like that, you know, when you're a young person.
Developing ages, like college is like when we find who we are. Like we find our friend groups, we find.
It's true.
You know, it's a lot of things that we find, and I think there should be more of an emphasis on development for that simple fact. It's like this time is propelling us into our life. And if we're intertwined with something that can change in a second, my whole basketball career changed in a second. My knee, in a second.
What happened to your knee, by the way?
I was in practice at Baylor. I came down. Me and my teammate were about to hit head on, and not hit, but like, you know, I was trying to avoid her to make a basket, and I tried to avoid her, and my knee collapsed. And I tore my ACL, and then I tore my meniscus in half. So with that, it was either take the meniscus out and really have like early arthritis in my knee, or repair it. So we decided to repair it, and I was non-weight bearing for the first 6 weeks, and during that time it was in the midst of COVID. So it was hard getting around by myself and without being able to put weight on my knee. And my parents came to help, but they had to get back to work. So, you know, I was out in the middle of Texas on my own, dealing with this traumatic injury.
Can I ask, how long did it take for your knee to heal?
Man, I didn't fully heal till about a year and a half later. There was a lot of things that transpired in the midst of that that kind of slowed up my rehabilitation process. But you know, I had to invest. My parents had to invest and make sure I was okay. But it took a lot longer than anticipated, for sure.
So you had the issues, the pressure that you experienced as an athlete in college, but then the knee injuries. I mean, that sounds like that might have been a huge factor in your decision to think about writing a breakup letter to basketball.
Yeah, and that breakup letter came 2 years later. But it's just like you get to a point, and when I think about basketball, I love thinking about it in the way of a relationship, because it's like you fight for something so hard, you push for it so hard, you want this person so bad, or you know, this thing so bad, and then you get to the point of exhaustion. Like, you know what, I've been pursuing you so long, and it's like you're breaking me down, this process, and you come to that moment where you're like, you know what, pursuing you with every piece of my heart and soul is not good for me anymore. So I have to have a healthy amount of space away from you, and that's what I felt like I did with basketball.
So, question now: when you were struggling, with mental health issues, what would have been helpful to you? Like, what kinds of things could have been done, maybe at the school you were at, to support you through this, or what could have been done and what was done? I think there's probably two questions in there.
What could have been done, I would say, is having more people around who are trained to deal with people who are going through, and being able to recognize when someone is, because as an athlete, all we know is push through. Like, we don't know if we can make it happen. If we tweaked our ankle, but we can still kind of play, we're gonna play. But mentally, having someone there, I would think would be the best option, because I felt like I was alone. I felt like I had to figure it out on my own, and figuring it out on my own without any prior knowledge to mental health struggles was hard. Like I said, if I didn't have my faith, I don't know where I would be. And it's scary, and I try not to even go down that road, that thought process in my mind, because if I didn't have it, I was totally lost. Like, totally lost. But yeah, just having people that see me for more than an athlete, people who actually enjoy to be around me or took any type of interest in who I was outside of those 4 lines, who knew what I liked, didn't like, who actually took the time to develop a relationship to be able to encourage me in those times. That's what I needed. I needed, mentorship.
So based on what I was researching about, the way that college athletics can impact an athlete like yourself, it sounds like you're not the only one out there that struggled with this or has struggled with this. So what do you think should be different in colleges and universities where there's a lot of emphasis on college athletics? Like, what could be done differently in those athletic departments to support students?
More emphasis on mental health training. Just like coaches have to get like a CPR, different things of that sort, where you're like having to have certain like things that are concrete required. It's the same with mental health. Because as the internet grows and social media grows, and like you're in the public eye no matter what. I mean, you can be at home in your bed, but someone can be watching a video of you. It's just like it's just growing how much we're in the public eye, how much we're publicly criticized, how much people have opinions about our lives and what we do without knowing us. And I think there should be more of an emphasis on the person. Who that person is, and if that person is tied and wrapped up into their sport, separating that in a healthy way and teaching that, because guess what, like, no matter how good we are, no matter how good LeBron is, like, one day he's going to stop playing. And if he has nothing else that he feel like he offers to this world, imagine how lost he could be. And for a lot of college athletes, our playing days stop after we stop playing college, because it's a small percentage of us that can even play in college, and then there's an even smaller percentage that goes on to play professionally. And all those hundreds of thousands of people who don't make it, how do they feel? And it's, I think, more identity, like understanding your identity, resources that help with that. I think there needs to be more mental health professionals around, just to help, because it's a lot that goes on, and it's a lot of people on teams. You think about football teams, 100+ guys, like you're just another person, and it just needs to be resources to make everyone feel loved, valued, and understanding who they are outside of their sport. Because guess what, like I said, we're done. Some of us are done after college. And what are you sending us? And how are you sending your athletes into the world? That's what I think every administrator, every coach, are you sending your athlete out into the world confident in themselves? Are you sending your athlete out into the world thinking that they can conquer anything they put their mind to? Or are you sending them out in the world feeling like they failed in a dream? And that's a question I think everyone should reflect on.
Well, certainly, because when you explain the number of people who can actually get into college sports or athletics, and then the very small percentage that can end up in either the NBA or the WNBA or the NFL or anything like that, then it tells you that you know, there is a lot of work that goes into being an athlete, but then what do people do if that doesn't work out for them?
Yeah. And what mental foundation have they built in terms of being able to go out and pursue something else? Have they been building up their self-confidence? Has that been built up? Or has it not? And now they're feeling like they're at square one with identity crisis.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and figuring out the identity is one of the major tasks of the transition. You know, the developmental period from adolescence to young adulthood is one of the developmental tasks for all of us. But from where I'm sitting, when you're focused on athletics, and again, your body being the primary vehicle through which you can do that, if something happens to that, or you don't make it, then it's like, so what do I do now?
For sure.
Yeah. So one of the things that has been an outcome for you is the creation of, you know, human before athlete, and some ideas you had about how you might take your story and use it to empower others, but also to try to, would you say, inform the culture in college athletics?
Yeah, I honestly developed human before athlete in the time that I stepped away from the team that I stepped away from. And it's no coincidence, but my dad has worked in education for, you know, over 30 years, and he's always talking about, you know, professional development. And it clicked to me one day, it's like, no one makes coaches do professional development, you know what I'm saying? And teachers have to, you know, make sure they develop their skills so that they're at their best for their students. And I feel like, you know, that should be the same, you know, to make sure that you're giving, you know, the best resources, the best version of yourself, the best perspective to the young adults that, you know, honestly depend on you, your opinion, and your influence. And so I developed it. I sat on it for a while, because even me doing something like this, it takes a lot of mental fortitude, because we're taught to kind of just, you know, sweep things under the rug, like, oh, it's okay, you know, you'll be all right. This is what comes with the territory. That's how it is, you know. And I think if we accept it, that's how it is for everything that we've been able to change and shape, just be like, that's how it is. Like, our world will never get better. But there's an issue here that needs to be addressed, and I found a tangible way to address that.
Well, yeah, because I'm wondering, like, you know, someone might look at you and go, oh, she's, you know, she accomplished so much in basketball, and she went to these 3 big schools, and, you know, I mean, the vernacular my age group would say, you know, some people might look at it like, well, gee, suck it up, buttercup, you know, you look at what you get to do. I mean, what do you say to people that might view you that way?
I would say that that's the problem. Because yes, I'm an athlete, yes, I was successful. That doesn't mean I was in the absence of mental health challenges. That doesn't mean that I can't speak out about, you know, what's going on with me. That doesn't mean that I can't seek help. That doesn't mean that, you know, you don't have to worry about me because I'm successful. I think we see some of the most successful people in the world go through really, really hard mental struggles. And I would say to those people that, you know, with athletes and with anybody, we need to understand empathy. We need to understand validated. I've been invalidated so many times throughout my collegiate career. Oh, you'll be all right. Like, you know, you're not really struggling. I've been told that I'm not struggling. My mental health has been laughed about, joked about. And because I say I'm struggling in mental health, I am, and it needs to be taken seriously. And that's kind of like my perspective on that. I think that's very, you know, that's not the way we should think about mental health and athletics, and not the way we should think about anything. If someone says that they're struggling, we should do the best that we can to make that better and be an ally and an advocate, not make excuses for the circumstances that cause their struggles in the first place.
Well, you know, one of the things for what we do at the Mental Health Association of Michigan, we do a lot of public policy work regarding mental health. But what you're really speaking to is something else that we are trying to inform people about, which is the negative effect of stigma. That even though it's 2023, the pandemic showed us that a lot of people were struggling before the pandemic with mental health issues, and now they're struggling. They struggled during, they're struggling after. And the hope is that mental health will be taken as seriously as physical health.
Of course.
Because I would like to think that nobody would make fun of somebody who had cancer.
Absolutely not.
Then I would like to think that people wouldn't make fun of or make light of people who have depression or anxiety or bipolar disorder, that there would be empathy extended to people who have a condition regardless of what it is.
For sure. I think that's great too, because stigma, stereotypes, all of those things are things that were kind of created, I feel like, to make a drift in society, and I think make things cohesive, not make things collective. And so we have to fight that battle to reverse those things and have people to come from a place of love. I think this all comes back to love. And when you mentioned when pressure is high, when stakes are high, when your job and your livelihood is on the line, a lot of that stuff can go out the window. Yeah. And no matter the circumstances, that stuff cannot go out the window, because you're dealing with developing youth, the future of our world. We are the future of our world. And so what gets put into our heart and our mind, and what we're allowed to feel, and what we're taught to think about ourselves from the people who we look upon for validation, can really make or break us, and essentially making a break in our future, the future of this world.
Well, and I agree with you, and this is another topic, but it's relevant here because you're, 24 years old? You're 24 years old. Through our website, we have mental health screenings available that actually go to Mental Health America, which is our national parent organization. We're an affiliate. And as long as we've been getting that data, the age group that struggles the most with depression and anxiety, ADHD, bipolar disorder, are folks between the ages of 11 and 17 and 18 and 25.
And imagine putting 2 full-time jobs on top of that in constant pressure. That's what we're up against. Imagine putting team dynamics. You don't even talk about the things that go on in between the team, that people are being bullied, or in the team. Like, add all of that together, that can be someone's reality, and you don't even know, because they got a smile on their face. And I think that's the stuff that we got to address. I'm here today to speak up and really encourage my peers to speak up, because we have a voice, we have a platform, and we can make a change for the things that really causes us problems during our experiences. And I'm not afraid to, because I know that my truth is my truth, and no one can take that away from me, and no one can take that away from any of my fellow peers as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we're going to take some questions, but before we do, I really want to thank you for having the courage to come and talk with us on a live podcast, which I have to say to everyone who's here, thank you for being here. We've never done this before like this, so appreciate your patience. But I really want to thank you for coming on and talking about, not only is mental health still hard to talk about, especially when it's our own struggles, but to talk about a culture of college athletics in general, which, unless you're in it, I'm not in it, I really don't completely understand what it's like. And so I really appreciate you bringing that to us. But also I appreciate you encouraging your colleagues to talk about it. I mean, you have been really successful on and off the court. I also understand that you're going to be finishing up your master's from Michigan State University in strategic communications. Okay. And you've got your company, Human Before Athlete. So, you're the person that Steve Jobs was talking about your story making you very powerful in terms of all the people that you can connect with and inspire.
Yes, ma'am. I think empathy is the gateway to anything that we do. And I'm grateful for my experiences, and I wouldn't take them back, because now, I can empathize with everyone across the spectrum in college athletics and efforts, like I said, to leave college athletics in a better place than I found it. And so we are not commodities. We are exceptionally talented human beings, but we're human beings first, and we should be treated as such, respected as such, and validated as such. And that's what I'm pushing, and that's what I'm gonna fight for today.
It's a great goal.
Yes, ma'am.
So we have about 10 minutes left, and I know Kristen has some questions.
I do. So I have one listener that says, "Hi, Kamaria. I really appreciate that you have spoken your truth. So important. Can you speak more about that moment when you felt you noticed more acceptance? And then what helped you find acceptance? And is there anyone that helped you?"
You know what? Honestly, it was I was pushing so hard for a goal that to be totally, let me be totally transparent. I felt like my dreams of the WNBA were slipping away. And I was like, you know what? I'm not making it. Like, it seems like everything was set up in my way to not make it. So what are you gonna do now? And I'm like, I have to figure out, I'm still in the middle of the season. I'm not thinking I wanna make it to the WNBA. And it's just like, I had a choice. You either accept that and make the most out of what you have and control the controllables, or you sit in pity. And sit in pity was something I've tried, and it wasn't helpful at all. And so I was like, you know what, my dream may be coming to an end, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna control the controllables, I'm gonna work hard, and I'm gonna start finding out who I am. So I did a lot of exploring into what I like. I did a lot of exploring into what makes me happy. And once I started to have other things to look forward to, other things that brought me joy, that's when I was able to accept, okay, if basketball doesn't work out, I'll be okay. And that was the first time in my life where I was like, you know what, I'll be okay. And to this day, I'll be okay. But it took years. It took years, it took heartache, it took blood, sweat, and tears. But I'm here today, and I'm here to help. So whoever that is, you want to reach out, if you need some help, or you know someone who I would love to be there to coach along as best as I can.
What a great response. I mean, what a great truth.
Thank you, Kamaria. So the same listener was saying they actually work with people to learn those skills of being mindful in the moment. And was that part of your acceptance?
For sure. If I wasn't in the moment, I did a lot of living in the past, especially during my dark moments, because I needed some type of joy to draw from. So I would literally, go watch old highlights. And when you talk about really wrapped up in the sport, I would do things like that to try, because it was just brought to my attention. You can correct me if I'm wrong with that. A lot of experiences, positive or traumatic, we can relive them through chemical releases in our brain.
Yes.
So I was actively searching those chemical releases in my brain because I wasn't getting them. And so being in the moment and finding out what makes me happy now and finding ways to release those chemicals to give me that worth and that happiness and, that will to keep going and figuring out who I am came from me, like, in this moment, okay, what can make me happy right now? And then I figured out, it's little things that really, like, going out, into nature and doing certain things, being attached to the right now is really what made me or allowed me to do that. I think in the moment is the best way. In the moment and controlling the controllables, I'm not gonna focus on anything else other than what's in my realm of control. So when things came about, it's like, can I control this? Yes or no? No, I can't focus on it.
And ultimately, what is the only thing that we can really control in life?
I think it's just attitude and effort.
Yourself, your response, right, to whatever's happening, and that's what you were doing.
Yeah.
And just to affirm you, one of the things that we teach people to do when they have trauma is to ground themselves by being present in the moment, by being mindful of, identify 5 things in the room or listen into, sounds in the room.
Yeah.
And that sounds like that's what you were doing, was bringing yourself back to the present, because what could you do about the past anyway?
I couldn't go back to the games
Yeah.
where I scored this or did that, assisted that. I couldn't go back to that's already been lived. And so that form of fulfillment was going to run dry eventually.
Mhm.
And so I had to figure out a way in the moment to make sure that I can be fulfilled. I can feel like, I'm worthy. I can feel like I have, value beyond, what I thought was my only sense of value. So.
Kamaria, what would you tell high school age Kamaria, and what would you tell the girl that's a freshman in college, Kamaria?
High school Kamaria, I would tell her, keep being you, because I feel like throughout my whole journey, people have, how do I say this? They've kind of deflected their insecurities on me. And the way that, like since I was younger, just believed in myself, and my parents instilled in me to believe in myself. People don't like when someone else has what they don't. And so I would tell her, like, keep being you, keep being hungry. It's gonna pay off, and just let her know that every interaction, every situation is working for a greater purpose. Because sometimes when I was younger, I felt like, why is this happening to me? Like, I didn't understand that there's no losses in life. There's just opportunities to learn. For a college freshman, Kamaria, I was a feisty freshman. Man, I would just tell freshman Kamaria to keep getting better. Keep getting better, and lean on people for guidance. Just because, like I just was so focused on playing. So like really just taking in experiences as well, and looking for other people for connections. I say guidance, but like connections, because I was so wrapped up when I was a freshman in basketball. I wasn't even trying to make friends or anything. I was just like, I gotta be in the gym, I gotta do this, I gotta do that, and I was just selling myself so short. So I would definitely, if I could, tell myself something before I went to college, just like, expand yourself, give yourself more credit than just a basketball player.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, because you are a lot more than, I don't know how I feel about just the basketball player, but you are a human, and you have a lot more to you.
Yeah, I'm glad I figured it out.
Any other questions?
I have a question. How do you deal with the stress put on you from outside expectations?
When we think about external forces, there's a lot of different ways that you could deal with that. And so for me personally, people that I don't ask for advice, I don't take criticism, and I don't allow their pressure to come into my bubble. Because one of the quotes that I really base, my life or my interactions off of is not taking criticism for someone I wouldn't ask for advice.
Oh, I like that.
Because someone who I know doesn't know me, doesn't love me unconditionally, like the people I surround myself with, their pressures is based off of what they have going on in their life, and it's being deflected onto me. The only thing I have to do is be my best self and continue to focus on progress. And so I think if you're dealing with external pressures right now, it's important to right now set, like, what do you want? It doesn't matter what anyone else wants, because guess what? They have the same time, space, and opportunity as you to meet their own expectations. So I feel like other people's expectations should be fulfilled by them and not me, because I have expectations for myself that I'll fulfill as I see fit.
Well, and I really appreciate what you said, because one of the things that I'm fond of telling people when other people tell them how to live their lives is that's easy for that person, because that person doesn't have to live with the consequences of the advice they are giving you.
Right, they want to see if you can
Right?
You want me to, you know, do this and that. If it's coming from a place of love and support, yeah, like support me and push me in a healthy way. But if you're coming like you should be doing this, like a lot of people in the basketball world are like, you know, you should have been. How are you gonna tell me? You know. So when I got to the point of understanding, like the only expectations I'm taking heed to is myself and the people who love me unconditionally. That's all I focused on, because people are gonna have expectations all the time, and they're gonna be let down because their expectations shouldn't be for anyone else but themselves anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. Well, I really want to thank you for this today.
Thank
I'm
you.
so glad we did this.
For sure.
This was so wonderful, and I really want to thank everybody out there who joined us today. And I want to encourage you to stay in touch with the Mental Health Association in Michigan. We have a great website. You can find out more about us at mha-mi.com/events. We have a lot of webinars, and I really want to thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes, ma'am.